There's a silent power, a kind of mental and physical fortress that makes a person seem utterly unshakable. It looks like invincibility. And today, we're going to trace the exact blueprint for that strength, a map drawn 4 centuries ago by a man who achieved it. The question is, have you ever encountered a person who simply doesn't break? Someone who moves toward any challenge without a flicker of doubt, without negotiating with their own willpower? You watch as others clutch at excuses, rationalizing their failures. They quit at the first sign of friction. But this person just persists. And the world offers its verdict. They're just lucky. It's all in the genetics. They must know the right people. But this dismissal is just a refusal to see the truth. The profound, undeniable truth that achieving that kind of mastery comes with a brutal, non-negotiable price. And most people just aren't willing to pay it. Yet they'll stand on the sidelines, passing judgment on those who dared to step onto the battlefield. 400 years ago in Japan, during the Tokugawa era, there was such a man. He fought in over 60 duels. He began at age 13, and astonishingly, he never lost. If you've spent any time here, you know his name. Miyamoto Musashi. He wasn't the tallest, the fastest, or even the strongest, but he forged something unbreakable, a mind that knew no hesitation, and a body that accepted no limits. Before he died, he recorded his system in a text called Gorin no Sho, the Book of 5 Rings. Within its pages is the exact methodology for transforming yourself into the kind of force that makes people pause and wonder, how is that even possible? But here's the unexpected turn. Musashi's method isn't about adding to yourself. It's a process of radical elimination. He didn't build his power by acquiring things. He built it by ruthlessly removing everything that stood in his way. Now, before we dive deep into this framework, if you find value in these insights, please subscribe, hit the like button, and in the comments, tell me, what single mental or physical weakness are you ready to completely erase? Your engagement helps this message reach others who need to hear it. Thank you. Now, let's begin the journey. The story of self-transformation starts with a man we'll call Lucas. 32, an engineer, married with 2 children, a completely ordinary life, facing completely ordinary stress. But Lucas had a singular, crippling problem. He was weak, not just in body, but in mind. Every morning, he'd vow to exercise. He bought 3 gym memberships. He canceled all 3. He'd start a healthy eating plan on Monday, only to sabotage it by Wednesday. He promised to rise early, but the snooze button was his master. The cycle was always the same. Fierce intention, weak execution. And the weakness didn't stop at the gym. When work got demanding, he'd completely freeze up. When a tough conversation was needed at home, he'd defer it. Discipline for the children, he defaulted to his wife. Lucas was living life on autopilot, constantly reacting, never truly acting. The turning point was terrifying. He suffered a panic attack in the middle of a major meeting. Heart hammering, hands slick with sweat, the room spinning. He had to flee. The doctor's verdict, after a full battery of normal tests, stress, anxiety, and a complete lack of mental fitness. The doctor's words were the trigger. Your body is reacting to non-existent threats because your mind is untrained. It can't distinguish between real danger and simple discomfort. You must train your nervous system. Lucas went home and began searching for the tools to fortify his mind. That's when he found Musashi, and he quickly realized this was not a philosophy book. It was a manual of total warfare, applied to the self. The first directive Lucas encountered in the Book of 5 Rings seemed utterly paradoxical. Have no preferences. Do not depend on any particular weapon. He couldn't grasp it. How can you gain strength without favoring a specific method? How do you master something without relying on it? Musashi's explanation was simple. Your strength cannot be reliant on perfect conditions. If you only train with the best equipment, you are weak. If you can only find focus in total silence, you are weak. If your discipline collapses the moment you're tired, you are weak. True power is the ability to execute flawlessly in any condition. Musashi himself trained with wooden swords, metal swords, 2 swords, 1 sword, and often no sword at all. He fought under sun, rain, in the cold, and in the suffocating heat. Why? Because your enemy will never wait for your readiness. Lucas was the absolute opposite. He could only be productive at his clean office desk. He could only work out if he'd had 8 hours of perfect sleep. He could only eat healthily if someone else had prepared the meal. His entire life was hostage to external factors. So he began Musashi's training, eliminate the dependencies. He chose a small, immediate task, push-ups. No equipment, no specific time, no perfect conditions required. Just his body and the floor. He committed to 20 push-ups every single day. The first week felt easy. The second, his muscles screamed. The third, he was traveling for work. The fourth, he caught a terrible flu. This was the exact point where the old Lucas always surrendered. But this time, he remembered the principle. The practice must continue regardless. Traveling? Push-ups in the cramped hotel room? Feverish? 10 push-ups instead of 20. Absolutely exhausted? 5 push-ups. But never 0. By day 40, the push-ups were becoming routine, but his internal landscape was still chaotic. Anxiety over work, worry about money, a constant low-grade fear of letting his family down. His body was tightening, but his mind remained fragile. Then he discovered the concept Musashi prized above all fighting techniques. Hyōhō, the everyday mind, the mind that does not move. Musashi wrote, "In the moment of battle, your mind should be identical to your mind when you are simply drinking tea. No fear, no excitement, only presence." How could a man remain calm when another was actively trying to kill him? The answer was shockingly simple. You train your mind not to react. You don't suppress fear. You become the person who doesn't need to react to fear. Lucas began testing this. Every time he felt the familiar spike of anxiety, in traffic, in a high-stakes meeting, during a disagreement with his wife, he did one thing. He inhaled deeply and observed the sensation without judging or acting on it. It was agony at first. His entire being wanted to shout, argue, or flee. But he simply watched. My heart is accelerating. My hands are damp. My jaw is locked. Just observation. No internal narrative. No reaction. The first true breakthrough came when his boss cornered him, yelling in front of the entire team. The old Lucas would have frozen, stuttered, and sweated through his shirt. This time, Lucas registered the fear, identified the sensation, and continued to speak calmly. His voice was steady. His response was clear. The boss was momentarily confused. His team was stunned. But Lucas knew. He had, for the first time, accessed Hyōhō, the mind that doesn't waver. A neuroscientist who has spent 2 decades studying emotional regulation can explain this. When you practice non-reactive observation, you are literally rewiring your amygdala. The emotional trigger threshold is raised. What once triggered a panic response now only triggers recognition. But Musashi understood a critical truth. A calm mind housed in an incapable body is a total illusion. You can possess perfect emotional control, but if your physical self fails, you lose everything. He wrote, "Train hard with wooden swords to strengthen the body. When the body is weak, the mind wavers. When the body is strong, the mind remains firm." Lucas had been doing his 20 push-ups for 60 days. He was stronger, but he hadn't yet been tested under true duress. Musashi never trained for comfort. He trained past the limit, and then he pushed beyond that. So Lucas made an insane commitment. 100 push-ups every single day for 30 days. No matter how many breaks he needed, no matter how long it took, the count had to hit 100. Day 1 took 45 minutes of gasping effort. Day 5, his arms were agony. Day 10, his wife worried he was overdoing it. Day 15, he hit the 100 in 20 minutes. By day 30, he completed them in 12 minutes without stopping. But the fundamental change was not physical, it was mental. When you prove to yourself that you can achieve what seemed impossible, you stop debating the difficulty. You just execute. Musashi called this Seini no Ai, the way of the warrior. It is not about talent. It is about eradicating the very notion that there is something you cannot do if you train hard enough. Lucas was physically more capable and mentally calmer. Yet, Musashi had one final principle that separated the skilled from the legendary. Zanshin, literally, the mind that remains. This doesn't mean being tense and alert. It means being always present, always aware, never disconnected. Musashi wrote of warriors who won a duel but were struck down while celebrating. He said, "The battle does not end when the enemy falls. It ends when you are safe." Zanshin is the awareness that does not relax until everything is truly resolved. Lucas realized he was living the opposite way. He'd finish a project and immediately completely tune out. He'd hit a milestone and stop training. He'd solve one problem and immediately ignore the signs of the next one looming. He began to practice Zanshin in real time. After his push-ups, instead of collapsing, he would stand for 30 seconds, just breathing and being mindful. After a tough meeting, instead of immediately grabbing his phone, he'd sit for a minute processing the facts. It's a minute detail, but it changes everything. When you maintain awareness after the action, you integrate the learning. When you immediately check out, you lose the lesson. Within 90 days, Lucas was undeniably transformed. His colleagues noticed, "You seem different, man. More present. Nothing seems to faze you." His wife was direct. "What happened to you? You feel like a different person." And she was right. He was. The ultimate crucible arrived on day 105. Lucas was called into an emergency meeting. The company was restructuring. He was going to be laid off. The old pattern would have instantly triggered absolute panic, heart spiraling, catastrophic thoughts swirling, complete paralysis. But something new happened. He felt the initial jolt of shock. He recognized the feeling. And then, nothing. His mind did not react. His body did not enter fight or flight mode. He was simply present with the information. "I see. What is the timeline?" The boss was startled by his calm. 30 days. "I'm sorry, Lucas." "Understood. Thank you for letting me know." Lucas walked out, returned to his desk, and continued his work. The colleagues who were laid off alongside him were calling home, crying, totally paralyzed. Lucas was simply at work, not because he didn't care, but because he had developed what Musashi called Heijoshin, the still mind, the mind that is utterly unmoved by external circumstance. Musashi wrote, "The tree is quiet, not because the wind is absent. It is quiet because its roots are deep." Lucas's roots had grown deep. 105 days of flawless practice. 105 days of emotional observation without reaction. 105 days of continuous awareness. When the storm hit, he didn't break because he had already been tested 1,000 times on his own terms. Over the next 30 days, while everyone else panicked, Lucas was in relentless action. He updated his resume, leveraged his network, and scheduled interviews. By the 23rd day, he had 3 job offers. He chose the best one, leaving his old company to earn 40% more. The colleagues who collapsed in panic were still unemployed 3 months later. A sports psychologist who works with Olympic athletes will tell you, the difference between those who perform under pressure and those who crumble isn't talent. It's the time they spent deliberately exposing themselves to discomfort. Resilience isn't a gift. It's a repeated, conscious build. But Musashi had a final, profound principle, the most difficult to grasp and the most potent to apply. Hyōhō, the strategy of void. He wrote, "In combat, do not intend to win. Intend not to lose." It sounds identical, but it is not. When you fight to win, you create openings. You push, you overcommit, you expose yourself to risk. When you fight not to lose, you remain entirely whole, without gaps, without inherent weakness. Lucas applied this to his new job. Instead of desperately trying to impress and demonstrate his worth, he simply refused to make mistakes. He arrived on time. He delivered exactly what he promised. He did not create drama. He made no promises he couldn't keep. 3 months later, he was promoted. His new boss's feedback: "You're not necessarily the flashiest person on the team, but you are the most reliable, and reliability trumps brilliance." That is Hyōhō. You don't have to be the fastest. You just have to have no weaknesses. Musashi never lost a duel, not because he was stronger, but because he never gave an opening. He studied his opponent, waited for the inevitable mistake, and executed. Absolute efficiency, zero waste. Lucas started applying this everywhere. In his diet, he didn't aim for perfect eating. He simply never ate junk food. In his training, he didn't aim to break records. He simply never missed a day. In his marriage, he didn't aim to be the perfect husband. He simply never broke his word. No weaknesses, no loopholes, no excuses. 6 months into his journey, Lucas was unrecognizable. Physically strong, mentally unbreakable, emotionally stable. But he hit one final wall. He was still terrified, not of the external world, but of himself. He was afraid that if he paused for just a single day, the entire structure would collapse. Afraid that his hard-won strength was fragile, temporary. This is where he encountered Musashi's ultimate concept, Sutemi, abandoning the self. Musashi wrote his final words just before his death. "I regret nothing. I fear nothing. I desire nothing." How do you reach that state? How do you fully abandon fear? Musashi's answer was the most radical. You stop identifying with the outcome. You are not your successes. You are not your failures. You are simply the continuous practice. Lucas put this to the test in an extreme way. He stopped counting training days. He stopped celebrating milestones. He removed all progress posts from social media. He cut off all external validation. The training continued. The mindful presence continued. The discipline continued. But now it was done without ego, without the need for recognition, and without the paralyzing fear of losing what he had built. He finally understood. You can't lose what you are. You can only lose what you have. If your strength is dependent on maintaining a streak, you will constantly fear the break. If your strength is who you've become, nothing can take it away. And in that precise moment, something unsettling began to happen. People started avoiding Lucas. Not because he was arrogant, but because his sheer presence was deeply uncomfortable. When you eliminate fear, hesitation, and the desperate need for validation, you become a perfect mirror. People look at you and see everything they are not, and that is painful. His coworkers stopped complaining around him. His friends stopped making excuses about health. His own family began to comment, "You've become too serious." His existence now proved that everything they claimed was impossible was merely uncomfortable. A year after beginning, Lucas was no longer the old Lucas. Not in terms of personality, but because he had stripped away everything that was non-essential. He was no longer a person who tried to be disciplined. He was a person who couldn't be undisciplined. The practice wasn't something he did, it was who he was. Musashi called this Kenzen Ichi. The sword and Zen are one. There is no separation between who you are and what you practice. You don't meditate, you are meditation. You don't train, you are training. When people asked him, "How do you have so much discipline?" his answer was simple: "I have no discipline. I've eliminated the parts of me that wanted to give up." This is Musashi's ultimate lesson. Mental and physical strength isn't about adding more. It's about removing everything that stands in the way of your essential nature. You don't need motivation to breathe. You don't need to force your heart to beat. These things are intrinsic. When training, discipline, and presence become as integrated as breathing, you've reached that intimidating level. The level where people look at you and think, "That's not human." And the truth is, they're right. It's not human in the sense of normal human. It is human in the sense of realized human potential. Miyamoto Musashi died at the age of 62, alone in a cave, writing. He possessed no wealth, no title, no followers. But he possessed the one thing no one could ever take: complete mastery over himself. His final words were, "I regret nothing." How many people reach the end and can genuinely say that? How many have lived at the absolute limit of their capabilities? How many have eradicated fear, hesitation, and weakness from their operating system? The question is not, how did Musashi do it? The real question is, why aren't you doing it? You have the same knowledge, you have the same number of hours in the day, you have the same human body with the same potential. The difference is not ability. It is the willingness to do what's necessary. The willingness to eliminate dependencies. The willingness to practice until practice becomes identity. The willingness to abandon everything that isn't essential. This daunting level of mental and physical strength isn't for everyone. Not because it's impossible, but simply because it is profoundly uncomfortable. And most people will choose comfort over capability every single time. But you are not the majority. If you've stayed with this message, you've already proven that. The only question that matters now is, what are you going to do with this information? If this video resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe, activate the bell, and leave a like. And tell me in the comments, what is the first addiction you will eliminate? What is the first weakness you will utterly transform? Remember, the strength that scares others is the only strength worth having. Thank you for your attention. I'll see you in the next video.